have 4 viewers waiting. Interesting. I didn't think we'll have people waiting for call. That's amazing.
Gap is more between me and the customers, right? So, being in this data science role, I felt that probably my impact can be pretty wide, and I can actually talk to the customers directly. And that's how I started my journey with the data science and AI. And obviously my first master's in electrical engineering kind of helped, and yeah, so that's how I got started, and I slowly grew in that role, and now I'm working at a principal level.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so so when it comes to AI, a lot of people want to ask, exactly what exactly is AI? What does it mean?
Yeah, as trivial it might sound, that is a great question because there's a lot of confusion about this in the industry. Honest, there is no consensus among different streams of researchers, right? But I think the more broadly accepted theory or definition of AI would be any system that actually tries to mimic human intelligence, in the sense that systems should be capable of making decisions based on certain data points, and then the decision should not be manually intervened, right? So what I mean by that is, you should not go into the system and try to correct it every single time. The system should have some intelligence so that it can take some form of data and output some other recommendations, right? So in the case of, for example, a spam detector, the input can be, your previous emails and the, and the labeled set of data, which is labeled as spam as ham. And then they train AI system, in this case, spam detector. The output is, if you have an email, then it's capable of predicting if it's spam or not spam, right? Similarly, if you take a business application, for instance, if you want to predict how many units, let's say, of iPhones Best Buy has to buy for next month, this is the problem, and the AI machine should take previous historic data and should be able to output computer vision, and now the reinforcement learning, et cetera, et cetera. So there are different streams in this, but I think the common theme is the machine or the system or the algorithm capable of making those predictions? Is there some intelligence in it based on the input data that you gave?
Yeah, so it almost sounds like, something that can, in layman text, make predictions. And then if you get the predictions wrong, it can self-correct and self-improve, such that the next, prediction is going to be better than the previous one.
Yeah, so that all is part of the training process or the learning process, as we call it, right? So the idea is you treat your history, as a valid, as a look into the future, right? So meaning, if you have good amount of history, then a representative amount of history in the data, so then researchers or the data scientists, they use this to actually train the algorithms. So the process that you just mentioned, trying to make sure if the prediction is right or wrong, and if it is wrong, we want the machine to self-correct and auto-adjust the weights. So that's all happening in the training process, and there are a set of metrics data scientists and AI researchers use to make sure the model is performing well. And if they believe that it is gaining some level of accuracy, some level of trustworthiness, and that's when they call it a day and they deploy it to the production.
Right. Interesting. So when people hear about AI, the first thing that comes to mind is self-driving cars, in some cases, fraud detection systems. Now, are there other areas where AI is being applied, even such that it's much closer to home? We hear of things like self-driving cars. In my part of the world, I've never seen a self-driving car right now. So it's really something that I hear and see from a distance. But what are the ways that we're beginning to apply AI such that it's much more closer to home?
Yeah, and it's a great question. And so you're right. It's a lot of think that AI is this esoteric and mythical technology where it is helping cars to be autonomous or it's being used in the spaceships. That's not the case at all. In fact, like probably every one of us who's using a smartphone is being exposed to AI, an app or a native feature in the device, right? So to give you some examples, right? Um, the AI, and there are several subfields of AI, like I mentioned before, like machine learning, statistics, natural language processing. It's being heavily used in almost every industry, and even within industry, there are several domains, right? So, for instance, if you look at a big enterprise, right, they have several different enterprise functions, such as, customer service, sales, marketing, supply chain, and HR, human resources, right? So today we are at a place where applications of AI are helping each and every domain. So, for instance, how can you improve a customer service, right? How to know what question are you going to ask? And if you ever came across a chatbot or a conversational agent, that's all based on AI. It takes the previous conversations, and there's a lot of natural language processing going on top of the previous historic data, and then the output is trying to find a closest answer to the customer question or trying to respond to the customer in a humanly fashion. And when it comes to sales, how can we find the next best prospect? If I have $1 million, let's say, in my marketing budget, obviously I cannot send to a billion customers. How can I identify who my prospect is so that I can efficiently spend my marketing budget? It is all based on machine learning and AI. And even in the human resources, right? How can we improve a firm's diversity? How can we how do we improve associate experience? For example, how do we know what is the right salary to give a person, right? A lot of applications of AI and machine learning in the human resources as well. So yeah, it's not just limited to self-driving cars and rocket ships, but if you want to become a data scientist, every other industry is using it.
Right, right. It's more like this might end up creeping into every facet of our lives. And it's quite interesting going into the future, seeing what AI would become of for in our everyday lives. Now, let's talk a bit more about the application of AI. And I kind of picked interest in when you talked about AI in business enterprise. How businesses can use AI to better their improve efficiency, improve their business operations, and all of that. Um, can you, for example, maybe give a scenario where um, AI is currently being used, maybe in your own domain or in a typical domain across any industry?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. I think the one that's uh, you know, very applicable to most industries is, for example, marketing function, right? Um, you know, Almost all companies, big or small, will have a marketing, function. And marketing function, they do a few important things, right? So one, the number one job is to create brand awareness, right? Yeah, obviously you have a product and you have to market it to the audience, and you also have to market to the right audience, right? Not just to anyone in the field, but you have to market to the right audience. And then the question becomes, well, how do you identify the right audience, right? Historically, marketing experts, they have a lot of industry knowledge, domain knowledge, and they have a lot of. So they used to do reporting and try to see, hey, what worked in my last month's campaign. So, for example, oh, okay, so I sent 100,000 emails, and 60% of them are clicked by individuals who are between 18 to 30 years old. And oh yeah, and by the way, most of the open clicks are from, let's say, Nigeria and India. All right, this is great insight. So let me send more to this age group, and double down on this. Right, this is how people used to do it before in the marketing area. There's nothing wrong with this, but there are a few problems here, right? So number one problem is your observation from the history. You want to. So what it does is it will take the input, historic data as the input, and it has the outcomes too from the historic data. For example, in this case, whether a person clicked on an email or not, and then it will build this. What are the different segments of our customers, and what is each segment based on? Is it based on, let's say, like age, education, their marital, create all of that, right? In system. So if I talk to you, Wale, so probably you based on your experience have certain knowledge. And if I talk to someone else, he or she might say some other things about what the thing is right in this case. Instead of asking each and every one, like if we ask AI and if we create good enough AI models, so the model will actually come up with the rules which we can generalize for a broader audience.
Wow, that's kind of that's kind of like a great application of AI there. So when examples of AI, and in terms of robotics, right, and where the world is, are we going to see a situation where AI comes and takes?
I think we are far, far away from that, right? Because we are at a very evolutionary stage, right? Even though we see a lot of buzz in the systems about AI and so AI beating. Let's just take a self-driving car as an example. I was just reading an article the other day. So let's say you're going in a car and you're driving by yourself, and there is a next to you. As a human, you still know that, all right, I still need to watch for that bike because it did not disappear. It's still there. It's just that the bike is covered by the car, right? AI machines cannot do that today. Can you believe that? Like, though, because of all these advancements, a lot of fine tuning and computation, all of that. So no, I don't think that the jobs will go away, but I think what might happen is the jobs will evolve, right? So, for instance, if you're just computer entry operator, if you all you do is entering numbers into the computer system, then yeah, I mean, if you don't update, then your jobs will transform, right? Is trying to, let's say, run a Scrum meeting each day. Then yeah, I mean, if you don't update your skills, then probably just running do is, let's say, retrieve information from a document, right? Then yeah, so bots can do that. So I guess what I'm saying is, this is not new, right? If you go back 100 years, um, I think, at least in the United States, I read that people used to break ice each day and carry ice home to home, door to door, and deliver ice, right? And after a few years, on every street they had cold storage, and fast forward a few more years, like we have refrigerators in every house, right? And you can make ice in your own house. So this is not to say that technology eliminated the job of the guy who is delivering ice to each house. I mean, that's just the evolution.
What are the beginner skill or the
Data science and AI is, surprisingly not the technology skills, right? I think it's the number one skill is problem solving, I would say, because if you don't know what you want to solve for, I think you're never going to excel as an AI engineer. Let's say you're a data analyst or a data engineer. Think from a problem solving standpoint. Try to and try to see of solving that problem. Right? So that's number one. And in terms of technology, um, and now like pretty much every single so Python can you can Python, you can use R, basic forecasting and regression functions that you can use, right? Rate of is it going to be R or Python or SAS? Just pick whatever is comfortable for you. Model enough, it will give you the results that you want, right? So data science process works, understanding what goes into the data science mechanism. What do you mean by training data? What do you mean by test data? At a high level, at least, understanding um, what metrics are used to measure the models.
big example. I learned data analysis. Typically, everything I know about data analysis now, where you have to have some sort of form. Everything can be done self-taught, or is there any need for a formal sort of education if you're interested in going into this line?
Yeah, I mean, so if you're, university or professional education, right? So you can, there are a ton of, books, courses available, and you can very well leverage them. But on the other hand, let's say you come from an accounting major and you want to jump into data science, then I think a formal education program will kind of help you to learn the basics and have that comprehensive, overview. And Vale, I think you're breaking up. Like, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly. Okay, I think my network is a
Okay.
bit
Cool.
yeah, my network is not the best right now, so I honestly don't know what's the side of things, because I'm just focused here. I have it recorded, so I can always edit it and repost the video. So, I mean, we've talked a lot about, AI, getting into AI, different concepts in AI. I think what are the other, how should I, what are the other, maybe, uh, you know, over time of being in this space and researching in this space? What are the common misconceptions that you have?
So I'm a data scientist. So this logic fails because of several reasons. Because um, yeah, number one skill that a data scientist need is not their programming abilities, though that's part of the job. So the number one skill is trying to understand the algorithms that are there behind AI and data science, right? You know, each algorithm has its set of assumptions. So each model assumes that data has to be in certain format. If you don't understand, the high level mathematics, the high level assumptions of the machine learning models, doesn't matter how expert of a Python programmer you are going to fail as a data scientist, because end of the day, you're here to solve a business problem. Once I got into like data related field, and I knew right away that this is a field that I want to be in. Right. And some of the, I guess, the good decisions that I made was I always never settled for the knowledge that I had. I always thought of learning more. And I know that I always feel that I'm not a smart person in the room. I feel that, there are a lot of talent, and I don't know a lot of things. I always felt like I need to learn new things, right? So I think this desire in me is what that kind of helped me to have this open mindset and learning new things. And I think the way that helped me in my career was I was always the first one in the room to raise my hand, though I don't know anything about it. I still remember in my first job, I used to be terrified speaking in meetings. Right, like I always feel that, oh, my communication skills are poor and I cannot really communicate with the audience at the level that they're expecting. But I still used to raise my hand because I felt that the only way to overcome this fear is to actually do it, right? And then I would go stand in the bathroom, in front of the bathroom mirror, and practice myself, for like 15, 20 minutes, and trying to improvise my skills. So I think my number one advice is, no one's going to eat you. So just raise your hand and let that be an avenue for you to learn things. So, for example, if you're already working in a data related field, I think the path for you to become a data scientist is much more easier than a person who is transitioning from other fields such as, let's say, accounting or I don't know, like business, right? So always try to find those opportunities, um, and be ready to grab them, and then go figure out how to do things. So so that's my number one advice, is like just be open for new
I think we've spent quite a bit of time talking. I still don't have any questions from YouTube, but do you have any questions for maybe do you have any questions for me, or do you have anything else you want to add? Maybe something you've not touched on before for a wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that I want to say is, you know AI and data science are the future, right? There's no question about it. It's just depending on the country. I think the maturity levels are different. For example, in the United States, like, I think it's not, we are well beyond the question of, oh, what is AI and why do you need to do it? Like, every leader came to consensus that it is the future, and if you don't, get into it, you're missing out on the way, right? um, but things might be different in different countries. So if you are a young graduate, if you are still in school, um, if you're thinking about what is the next big thing, this is the next big thing. Make sure to enroll in a course, or work on a project, get some experience, into the field of data science and AI. Um, and there are several ways to do it, right? So, one way that I encourage every single one who is in a university to do is approach a research professor. Like if you have a professor who's conducting active research, just talk to him or her and try to get some exposure into the research methods. It doesn't have to be overly complicated, but at least understanding how research works, how experiments are conducted, it's a huge knowledge that people often miss out on when they are in universities, right? So when you're in a school, people always think that, oh, I need to graduate, I need to pass this exam and find an internship. Yeah, it's all important, but if you have a good research faculty, make sure to talk to them. And it also highly encourage every single data analyst, data scientist, or data engineer to participate actively in the community. Kaggle is a great way to do that. So it's called kaggle.com. Companies post different competitions and they host data sets that can be publicly used for your experimentation purposes. Um, you know, Even if you're a beginner, try to experiment with try to form an opinion on how you would do, um, if you are to become a data science, right? And and those opinions means a lot, right? A typical data scientist interviews will look like this, right? They'll ask you a bunch of coding questions, and then the most important part of the interviews is they would give you a problem, and they would want you to see how you would solve that problem, right? So by forming these opinions early in your career, you're just doing a justice to yourself to uh, overperform in the future interviews.
Fantastic. Definitely insightful. Actually like the
There's a
idea of,
question from IO on the.
yes, on the chat. It says, what is the best way to become a data analyst? I'm learning about it, but it looks like I'm Arabic. So what's the best way to become a data analyst?
I think Wale, do you want to take a first stab at that because I know you are the rockstar data analyst.
Well, yeah. So I think, so to become a data analyst, I think we've covered a bit of it. You must have the soft skills are really very important, and I think anyone can develop the soft skills. So you must be able to ask the right questions. You must be able to problem solve. So you have problem solving skills where you look at a problem and then you're able to to work out a solution for the problem. Or maybe you have this data and then find these other data. So you have this data, find X. That's problem solving there. And then you must be able to think critically. So if I'm going to solve a problem, how will I solve it? How will I walk through the process of solving that problem before I get um, to the desired results that I want there. So those are the key things first. And then once you're done, or not really once you're done, but once you have those skills, then you can start merging that in with the hard skills, which are learning how to use Microsoft Excel to solve these problems, to do your analysis and all of that. And then if you want to take it a step further, you can use Python, R to solve the same problem. But definitely as a beginner, Microsoft Excel is where you can start, where the easiest place for you to start. So I hope I'm able to answer that question. There's also another question on the chat. It said, how does a mid senior level employee master data science / data analytics?
Yeah, and it's a great question, Tico. Sorry if I mispronounced it. I think the number one way is to seek opportunities within the company, right? So so here is how I did it. I guess. Like I worked as a data engineer and data analyst, for several years, and then in one of the organizations that I worked for before, they're struggling with employee retention. So in a certain role, we are hiring a lot of people, and then there's a lot of attrition in that group, and people are leaving after 18 to 24 months. Right? And I saw that as an opportunity, and I started doing some data analysis on it. I started to build some graphs, line charts, and bar plots, and try to see how is the data correlating with different attributes. Um, are people coming from one company leaving more than the other? And then soon I came to know that all right, so there are a lot of variables. Obviously, I can probably create a graph between three variables at a time. If it's beyond that, I think I don't know what to do. And knowing having some background in data science, I thought, all right, it's a great problem for machine learning and data science, right? And at that time, I'm not an expert at all. Like probably I just did a basic course in Coursera. But I went to my manager and I told him that, hey, we have this problem. I know this is a problem because this is how many people are leaving, and this is how much it costs for the company to hire new people. Is it okay if I spend 10% of my time trying to learn this, um, and do this in my spare time? And he's more than willing for me to try it. And then what I did was, I went out to the other machine learning experts and said, hey, I think I need some help. What can I study to do this? Like, what skills should I develop? I took like 7 months to do this, but hey, end of the day, I actually solved a problem. And after that, I kept on getting more, data science problems, right? So I guess the key takeaway is if you already are a mid-level executive, raise your hand, try to identify the problems, and try to find projects and work on them under a safety net. Don't make it your number one. Don't tie your bonus to solving the problem, but have some safety net. Do it. If you try to solve one or two projects, and I'm sure eventually your speed to market and speed to proficiency will improve.
Fantastic. All right. Uh, we don't have any more questions on the chat. If you have any more questions, you can drop it very quickly. We're almost at the end, getting to the end of the show. So, Ashwin, if one wants to find you, like anyone wants to get in contact with you, find you, ask more questions, where is it best to reach you?
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is the best way to reach me. And Wale, I'll leave my with you. So maybe after the call, if you can just add it to the description, so this way people can click on the link and easily find me. And please feel free to send me a request or just a chat if you'd like. And if you need, and I do a lot of mentoring as well as I love volunteering and giving back to the community. So if you want to grab a quick virtual coffee or just exchange thoughts via chat or LinkedIn messages, I'm more than happy to do that.
Okay, fantastic. One more question before you run off. Bio is the course says, what is the stages or what are the stages in becoming a data scientist?
Oh, yeah. So even before that, I think we missed out on an important topic that I'd like to discuss is so today, at least in the US, there are multiple roles within the data science field itself. So I want to quickly chat about that and then answer that question, right? So depending on the organization that you want to go to, right? So for example, IBM, Google, all these tech companies, they have dedicated research groups, and they mostly are looking for PhDs, right, to conduct active research. And the outcome of that active research, they create some products, right? So that's a different world altogether. but in business groups or in traditional companies, so you'll have, let's say, a statistician who is primarily focusing on developing statistical methods, and then you have a data scientist. So data scientist is someone who leverages computational methods such as computer science algorithms and big data methods to solve AI related problems. And then you have what's called uh, you know AI engineer. So AI engineer is basically with more about data engineering and less about you know machine learning. So basically, the role is to be a jack of all trades and think about a full stack software engineer, right? Um, and then a newly emerging field is called ML ops engineer. So you have all these machine learning models, but end of the day, you need to productionalize them. Just like you productionalize your code, the productionizing machine learning models is like, how do you make it scalable? How do you integrate into your existing framework? Let's say you're Netflix and you want to make recommendations. You cannot just say, hey, I'll provide you Excel with my recommendations and go look at the Excel to find your next movie, right? That doesn't work. Like, you have to integrate into your broader ecosystem. That's where the ML ops, machine learning operations, come into picture. And so, with that background in mind, the different stages in becoming data scientists, right? Um, I think if you're not confident about if you have enough skills to get into the data scientist, so to my previous explanation, get into some data related role, data analyst, data engineer, and try to grow from there. Or if you just wanted to become a data scientist right off the gate, then what you can do is participate in this competition such as Kaggle. And there are a bunch of coding competitions, or like Hacker Rank is a good one. You can learn coding skills, and you can apply for entry level data science jobs. And I guarantee you, any data scientist job out there will ask for a portfolio of projects. Right? You cannot just include your school project in there unless it is quite substantial. Try to be a web developer, right? Try to come up with some portfolio of projects. Be very active on GitHub. Show them that you know how coding in GitHub works, and then after like 4 or 5 good projects, you can use that to your advantage and talk about explaining those projects in your interviews.
Right. So fantastic. I've definitely picked up some things there from I mean, being the stages to get to becoming a data scientist. ML ops engineer, AI engineer. Definitely, I'll do some research on that and see how, and share more information to my viewers about how they can plug in as well. So I'm very conscious of time. I think we are almost up. Thank you so much, Ashwin, for having to do this. I mean, it really gladdens my heart to have you on the show, have you on the channel to talk to people about data science, AI, and how they can benefit. And it's been a blessing you being here today. So thank you so much.
No, thank you for inviting me, and you're doing a great job to kind of talk more about work-life balance and growing in your career, especially in the data. So keep doing the good work, and we'll stay in touch.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. All right. So all right. So I hope you guys have gotten something out of this. I hope you guys have gotten something out of this stream today. That was it, Ashwin, and I believe you learned a lot today. So if you Let me see how many viewers we have. We have 14 people. Okay, currently watching. Yeah, fantastic. I don't intend for this stream to be more than an hour, so thank you so much for watching. For everyone that tuned in to watch, it's a long stream, but maybe I'm going to do some work on it just to shorten it a bit and pick out some snippets, so that you can watch again. All right, so that's it from me. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching. I'm sure we're going to name this something. I have to think about something, some sort of name to give this live stream. But I intend to do this, right? To do this, to continue to do this. So if you're watching and you want to be on the channel, do send me a mail and we can have a conversation about it. And also, thank you so much for everyone that's watched. Thank you. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Yeah, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. See you in the next video. Bye.